Vitamin K, I want to come back to that one, which is often found in supplements with vitamin D. You quickly touched on it. Get more into the nuance there. Is that something we want to look for in a vitamin D supplement? And the way I understand it is the K, and we're talking about K2 here, it helps not bone, but calcium deposit in the right areas of the body that we want it versus in unhealthy areas. So I'll have you talk about that.
That's kind of a half truth. There's a lot of misinterpretation. One argument, for instance, is that if you take vitamin D without K2, you will calcify your arteries. That's utter nonsense. There's no basis for that. What do we know it's true? We know that K2 intake strengthens bones. It does not increase bone density. It only strengthens bones. So probably via a collagen mechanism, probably. That evidence is mostly out of Japan, where it was recognized that people who ate natto, which is fermented soybeans, it's disgusting. My mom was Japanese. She tried to feed us natto. It's disgusting. It looks like snot. But it's rich in K2, in the MK7 form of K2. And the evidence is pretty good that it does increase bone strength, though it does not increase bone density. Now, there was a study called the Rotterdam Heart Study. It came out about 15 years ago, where they did this. Jesse, did you eat any cheese on Monday? You say, I had 2 slices of cheddar cheese on my sandwich. How about Tuesday? I had some mozzarella cheese on my pizza. And we quantify how much K2 are in those foods. Then I contact you in 5 years. And I say, Jesse, have you had a heart attack? You say, no, I haven't. Or yes, I have. And then we relate it back to that intake. That kind of study, observational epidemiologic study, it's very sloppy. It is the basis for almost all dietary guidelines, by the way. That is, I say, Jesse, what'd you eat for breakfast on Monday? I had a bowl of oatmeal with a banana. What'd you have for lunch? I had a bologna sandwich with mustard and cheese on 2 slices of whole grain bread. What'd you have for dinner? Right? Do that for 5 days. I contact you in 5 to 10 years. And I say, did you have colon cancer or heart disease or whatever? And then we try to relate it back to the 5 days of dietary questionnaire. Now, wait a minute here. In the years since you filled out that questionnaire, you got divorced and you drank too much. And then you did a cleanse. Then you fasted 14 times. And then you went on a binge on an all-you-can-eat vacation. Then you got depressed and you ate fast food for 3 months solid. And in other words, all kinds of crazy stuff happens to humans. And you're going to predict your future by 5 days of what you ate 10 years ago? That's how they develop dietary guidelines. Well, that was the Rotterdam Heart Study. And 4,700 Dutch people, and they quantified K2, presumptive K2 intake via questionnaire. And then they said people who had greater K2 intakes had 57% reduced heart attack. So that's very bad evidence, very sloppy evidence. And so far in prospective studies, it's not held up. So it's probably not true. But here's another aspect of K2. So modern people have disrupted their gastrointestinal microbiome. Well, do microbes produce vitamins? They do. They produce the good microbes, not the fecal microbes, not the proteobacteria, but the ones you want. They produce vitamins B1, B2, B3, B5, B7, B9, B12, and K2. Isn't that interesting? So the apparent need for K2 is probably really a reflection of dysbiosis in the colon or SIBO in the small intestine. So there's no harm in taking K2, like maybe 180 micrograms of the MK7 form like natto, or, by the way, fermenting with Bacillus subtilis. It's not quite clear. So the microbe used to make natto is Bacillus subtilis, subspecies natto. But you can get Bacillus subtilis. I have some fermenting on my kitchen counter right now. I got it from kombucha. I bought a kombucha that was made with Bacillus subtilis, and it makes a delicious sparkling soda out of juices. So it takes a juice, hot sugary juice, gets rid of the sugar because the microbes process the sugar, and you get an effervescent sparkling juice out of it. It takes about 60 hours at 90 degrees, by the way. Now, one thing we don't know is what other strains of Bacillus subtilis produce K2. So I'm not sure I'm getting K2 from that juice. At some point, I should do that. We should measure K2 in it. But you can just do that also. So you don't have to buy an expensive supplement, but you can. There's no harm in doing it. But I'm a little bit skeptical, given what's known about K2, that it has any cardiovascular benefits.
You mentioned MK7 being the form to look for. There are different forms. Are there any value to the other ones, or is MK7 the only way to go?
MK4, MK9, MK10, that just refers to the length of the tail on the molecule. They do have benefits also, but some of them, like MK4, is very short acting. So you can take MK4, but it only provides an effect for about 3 hours. The MK7 provides effect for about 3 days. So the MK7 is just more resistant to metabolism and more. So if you're going to get K2, you want to get the MK7 form.
Okay, so bottom line for somebody going out to buy vitamin D, do they want, if both options are there with K2 or not, would you pick the K2 one?
I think if you're a woman at risk for osteoporosis, it's a modest advantage to get the K2. But it's once again hard when you have a combination to alter the. What if you prove to have a low vitamin, 25 hydroxyvitamin D, and you want to increase the D intake? You got to take the whole thing, right? You can't really adjust them individually. But beyond that, there's no harm in taking it with the K2.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
No, there's nothing else that tracks with LDL cholesterol because it's not a real number. It's a fictitious number. It's obtained by something called the Friedewald calculation. The LDL cholesterol reducing franchise, statin drugs, PCSK9 drugs, all that stuff pay huge amounts.